Hi, I'm Joshua Ebner. I'm a 20-year expert in AI, machine learning, and data science. And today I want to talk to you about 5 ways to use AI to increase revenue. So, increasing revenue is one of the core goals of a business. We can actually talk about a few core goals of a business: generating revenue, generating profit, and then decreasing risk. And then there's a variety of other metrics that you can track, things that are a little bit more detailed. But before you do almost anything in a business, whether you want to hire, you want to improve your product, you need to cover administrative expenses. Before you do any of that stuff, you need to have enough money coming in the door. Moreover, many business valuations are calculated as a function of revenue. So, having enough revenue coming in the door and then growing revenue over time, this is one of the most important things for any business person. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover 5 ways to use AI to increase revenue. But broadly speaking, there are two main ways or two main things that you can do to drive revenue. So you can increase the number of customers or you can increase the average revenue per customer. All of the 5 things that I'm going to talk about, they either hit one of these or both of them at the same time. So, having said all of that as a preface, let's start with the first way to improve revenue using AI. Now, this one is a little bit of a roundabout way, but it's actually one of the most important, especially at lower revenue levels. Let's say if you're in the mid 5 figure to 6 figure range, this is probably really critical, but might be important even for 7 figure founders and up. What I'm talking about here is using AI to automate lower value work. Let me explain. So, in many cases, many entrepreneurs and specifically many founders get bogged down with lower value work. They might have, let's say, $100 or $200 an hour work that they could be doing, things like sales, but they're getting bogged down in lower level administrative tasks, things like customer support. Obviously, customer support is valuable, but you can probably outsource that to somebody else. Or maybe they're doing other types of admin, they're answering emails, doing a variety of other things. Different businesses are different in this regard, but we can kind of categorize this as sort of like support and administrative. So, what should be happening in the business is ideally the founder or entrepreneur should be focusing on sales. In many cases, in a business, the best person to be doing the selling is the founder. That's not always true, but in many cases, it actually is. So, what we want to do in this case is we want to take the founder and start offloading some of their lower value administrative and support work and offload that to people and processes and AI. So, you can take some of those customer support requests, build an AI workflow or system, and offload some of the stuff that the founder is doing, offload it to AI. Alternatively, you can offload some of that stuff to a human being, let's say someone that, instead of the founder doing it for $200 an hour, the value of their time, you offload some of that work to somebody who you're paying $30 an hour. Moreover, that person might still want to automate parts of their workflow. So in this case, we're trying to rank order the value of the different work that people are doing. And then we want the founder to focus on the highest value work. And in this case, it's probably sales. If you have a sales team, they might be wanting to offload some of their administrative work to AI. So you want to think about the lowest value work that people are doing, offload that, and then use it to drive some of the higher value work like sales. Number two, you can use AI to analyze sales calls. So, right out of the box, many modern AI systems, large language models, things like ChatGPT, they're actually pretty good at analyzing sales calls. So, you can take a transcript, you can use some recording software like Fathom.video or something similar. It will record the video call. You should be doing your sales calls over video. It records the call, it generates a full transcript. Then you can take that transcript and put it right into ChatGPT and it can analyze it. That's sort of like the level one of this. But you can also use other types of AI systems to categorize things or analyze the call. So, for example, you can use various types of AI systems to identify the customer's main pain points. Then you can use it more like a classification system going forward, figure out, okay, these are the top 5 major pain points for most customers. and then use an AI system and maybe fine tune an AI system to act like a what we would call a classifier, a classification system. So you input the sales call transcript, and then it outputs the main pain point or pain points for that particular call. Then you can use that in analytics, try and figure out how to address those things. There's a whole set of processes you can do after that. But essentially, you're using an AI system as more like a classification system, and then you can use that for analytics and improving your calls. You can do the exact same thing with objections. So, if a customer has an objection towards the end of a call, you can analyze the transcript using an AI system. You can use an AI system similarly as a classifier to try and classify those main objections, analyze that, track it over time, and try to improve some of the ways that your team overcomes those objections. Ultimately, if you do this, like point one, you will be able to acquire more customers, and that drives revenue. Number three, you can use AI for content generation. So many businesses use content, they have a content marketing strategy. They create content, and that creates inbound prospect flow. You're trying to essentially attract people towards your business using content. And in fact, right now, this video that you're watching, this is a type of content marketing. Now, I want to add one caveat here that I think that SEO, search engine optimization, essentially writing articles and posting those, hoping to get ranked in Google, I think this is going to be very challenged going forward. I say this with some experience. I used SEO in my business for a very long time. I largely think that SEO is going to be a huge problem going forward. And the reason is that the cost of generating tokens has decreased by multiple orders of magnitude over the last few years now that we have large language models, things like ChatGPT. So you can click a button and get an article, and maybe more to the point, someone else can click a button and generate an article that's competitive with yours, and it takes only a few seconds to do this. On the other hand, things like video and social media, I think they're going to be much more safe. And I think that they're still going to be very good if you do them correctly. So you can use AI in a variety of different ways. So, for example, you can generate content ideas. AI, especially if you are interacting with an AI system like ChatGPT, it's eventually going to understand your business. It's also, if you give it the appropriate context, it's going to understand your customers and your market in a pretty good way. Maybe not perfectly, but it's going to understand the sorts of challenges and opportunities that your customers are likely to have. And because of that, you can go to ChatGPT or a similar system and just ask it, hey, what are some good content ideas? You can also use AI to draft outlines and scripts. So I sort of recommend that you have a human. Definitely, you should have a human in the loop. And in many cases, an AI is going to draft kind of like a rough draft that's maybe not perfect, but it might give you some ideas. And then you can go back and forth with the AI and refine those outlines or scripts over time. And you can generally get something good. At the very least, it's a good starting point. Okay, number four, churn modeling. One of the biggest holes in your revenue bucket is people exiting your business. So we typically call this churn. Let's say you have a product or a service where there's some sort of continuity program or plan. They purchase once and it costs them a certain amount of money for a month, and then they are recharged every single month. This is very common with things like SaaS, but there are many services that operate like this, things like retainers. Losing a customer that is paying every single month, this is a decrease effectively in your revenue. And one of the biggest challenges for these types of businesses that rely on repeat purchases is churn. People just saying, I don't want this anymore. They're leaving. They're frustrated. They don't like the product, something. You can use AI and more classic types of AI that we call machine learning. You can use modern AI systems and classic machine learning techniques. You can use these to effectively predict churn. You can figure out additionally why customers are churning. If you build the model in a particular way, you can sort of look inside and figure out, okay, the model is saying that these features or these factors are important for model churn. And then you can use that analytically. You can say, okay, they dislike the product, they dislike wait times, they dislike XYZ in the product or service. And then you can go in and start fixing those things proactively in your product or in your business. And then that helps ultimately to decrease churn. So this is a very effective tactic. It's maybe a little bit more intermediate simply because you often need very specific types of data or certain amounts of data to build a churn model. But if you can, building a churn model to predict churn in your business, this is one of the best ways to ultimately reduce churn, increase lifetime value of a customer, and increase revenue over time. Okay, finally, number five, upsell and cross sell models. So this is maybe a little bit more advanced and it requires you to have number one, it requires you to have a sufficient number of products and services. And number two, it requires you to have maybe a fair amount of data. You need to have the right types of data in order to do this. But under the right conditions, you can build models that will predict the either the next logical product if you have multiple products and services and you want to cross sell an existing customer, or if you have a tiered system, let's say with SaaS and you have three or four different product tiers, you can predict when someone is likely to be ready for an upgrade. Let's say they upgrade from the basic to the premium tier, and that might be worth hundreds of dollars every single month, depending on your pricing policy. So if you have the right data, this can be an extremely powerful way of increasing your revenue. As an example of this, Amazon is in some large part, it is built on cross sell models. It is built on predicting the next logical or next most likely product for a customer, things that a customer is going to like. You'll even see this. You open up Amazon, you buy something, and then later on it says, based on your purchase history, you might like, and it gives you new product or book recommendations, things like that. So those are cross sell models. You also have upsell models, like I said, in a SaaS business, and many SaaS businesses very successfully build models that predict when a customer is likely to be ready for an upgrade. And that might be, again, it's worth a lot more revenue. So this is really about increasing the average revenue per customer. But like I said, this is a very powerful way of increasing overall revenue, gross revenue in a business. So, closing out, those are 5 ways to use AI to drive revenue in a business. What do you think? Have you seen these successfully deployed in a business? Did I leave something out? Have you seen something else where AI has been used to increase revenue in a business? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment.